Hello guys, and welcome back to another Blender tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you guys step by step in this tutorial how to make this ship coming out of this broken glass bottle. It's going to be an animation, and this is a complete process. It's actually pretty simple. I'm going to be putting the final result that you see here onto my Patreon, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. It's going to be covering some animation. We're going to be using some noise modifiers and just some really basic constraints and stuff. So let's get right into it. Okay, so first of all, you're going to want to download some sort of ship asset. Now I'm going to put a link in the description below to this one here on Sketchfab. You're free to use it. It is CC0. You can read all about the licensing here. And I'd like to give full credit to the individual who made this. So you're going to go ahead and sign into Sketchfab. It's 100% free to create an account. You're going to download the model and it's going to download it as a zip folder. So you can see here as an example, I've already downloaded the sailboat. You're just going to extract that zip as you would with any other one. So I'm going to go ahead and extract that. And then it's going to open up a folder. Inside of that folder, there's going to be a source. You may have to go in there and extract that again. Go ahead. And then you should see a folder pop up. And that folder has got a boat OBJ. So you're going to take that, put it somewhere in your computer. I've already got one there, so I'm just going to replace the file in the destination. And then those textures, you're going to drag them on there. I'm going to just skip that because I already have those textures on here. Okay, so once you have that on your desktop somewhere, you're ready to use it. So we're going to go ahead and open up Blender. So go jump into Blender. And you can see here, I'm using Blender 3.2 at the point of this tutorial. So I'm just going to select all of the default objects. I'm going to press X and delete. I'm going to go to File. And if you want to import an OBJ, you're going to go to Import OBJ. And in this case, I put mine on my desktop. So I'm going to go to my desktop, click on that file and go import OBJ. And you can see it's absolutely massive. We'll deal with that in a second. But for now, let's just, with this ship selected, let's just press Z and go into our material preview. And you can see we're not seeing anything. So let's just add those textures real quick. We'll do more specific things later on, but let's just go to our materials. With that boat selected, let's just go over to our base color. It already has these materials. Just click on this tab and go to image texture. Click on open and then go to your desktop or wherever you have those extracted textures that came with the model and just get the base color and click open image. And do the same with the one on the bottom, base color, image texture, open and go to that same textures, get that base color and open. And now with the bottom one here, it actually looks like we weren't supposed to use that. Let's just click on the folder again. This has its own boat base color here, I think for the sail, it's this one over here, the boat, the Lambert, just click on that. Okay, that is the right one there. Okay, so that's what we want. So we can actually double click on this bottom one. Let's just call it sail. And let's just double click on the top one and call it boat. Okay, now we have the boat model. Let's just tab into edit mode. Make sure everything is selected and then go G, Z and bring it down. You see that little orange dot there? That's our origin point. We want that to be kind of at the bottom middle of the ship. And then we can tab out. Then we're going to go Shift A. Let's just add in a cube for reference. And let's just grab our boat. Let's just go S to scale it down. We want this to be a bit of a smaller scale. We're not doing any sort of physics simulation, so it doesn't matter if it's up to scale. So we're just going to scale it down. G, Z, move it down until it's about the same size as our cube. Then we're going to just delete that cube. And now we have the scale we're looking for. So we're going to go Control A and just apply the scale, Control A or Command A. And apply the rotation. Now we have our ship model. We can move it up here somewhere in the middle of our scene and it's got its textures. We'll work on them a little bit later, but it's ready to go. You have your boat model. So what we're going to do next is we're going to be making our simple glass bottle. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go Shift A. We're going to add in a cylinder. We're going to press 3 to go into our right orthographic view. And with the cylinder selected, we're going to tab into edit mode and make sure all of the geometry is active. You're going to go R, X, 90 and hit enter. So we've rotated it 90 degrees on the X. And what we're going to do is with it all active, we're going to go S, Y, scale it on the Y and make the bottle a bit longer, something like that. And in fact, let's just go S and scale it up just a bit, make it a bit bigger. And then we're going to select all of these verts here. We're going to go E to extrude, S to scale, just bringing it forward a bit. And then we're going to go E to extrude, S to scale, just to make a lip and then E to extrude. And then go X and just delete that face. It could be any kind of bottle shape you want. I'm going to go to my edge select option up here. I'm going to go Shift Alt and then left click on this edge and left click on this edge to select them both, and with Shift Alt still selected, just left click on this edge here as well. We're going to go Control B and that'll make a bevel, and then we're going to roll our middle mouse button up after we've pressed Control or Command B, and we're just going to make a shape like that. Then we're going to come in here, Control R, we're going to roll in some loops like that. Control R, add in some loops here, and then we're going to go Shift Alt, left click on this edge and this edge, maybe this edge, and we're going to go Control B and roll down the middle. So we're making a bevel. You can roll down the middle mouse button to add less segments, add in about that many, and then you have a bottle. You can tab back out into object mode, right click, shade smooth, and then you can go to your modifiers and give that a solidify, and then solidify it outward a little bit, just a little bit. We don't want to go too thick with that glass. And then you can go click down here and apply. Now we've applied it. Okay. At this point, what I'd recommend you do is give it a subdivision surface modifier to really smooth it out. And we're going to have to go down and apply that as well before we do the fracture simulation. That's unfortunately something we have to do, but now we have a nice smooth model. And before we fracture it, let's just go G, Z and move it up in our scene about this much, and we're going to grab our boat, make sure our boat is sitting nicely in the middle there. As long as it's all roughly above the floor and roughly in the middle, it's fine. You can see in our right orthographic view, this is what we have. The bottle should look more or less like this. It doesn't have to be precise. As long as your ship fits in there and it's a nice sealed model with clean topology, everything's good. So let's now take this bottle here, which is a cylinder, and let's press F3 on our keyboard. And once you press F3, you can type in here cell, and you should see an option called cell fracture. Now, if you don't see that, you might have to go to Edit, Preferences, go to your add-ons, and then type in here cell, and make sure that object cell fracture is enabled. So getting back to this, F3, type in cell, and you're going to see quick effects, cell fracture, and click on that. Just leave everything as it is by default and click OK. We're not going to get into that. And it's going to have a little bit of a think about it. You can see here it's working things out, and there you go. You can see everything is actually active by default, all the bits here. Now for some reason it hasn't made everything here, and I'm not quite sure why that is. In this case, I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm just going to select the original bottle, right? And I'm going to press M. I'm going to go New Collection. I'm going to call Old Bottle. And I go OK, and up here in our collections, we're just going to take that old bottle collection and hide it. We don't need to see it. Okay, so now we just have this fractured bottle. What you could do is while you're in your main collection here, just select the ship, Control I or Command I to inverse the selection. Now we have all of these fragments, and we can go M and go New Collection and go OK, and type in glass shards or whatever, go OK. So now what we have here in our collections is our main collection with our boat on it that we can hide and add back in. We've got the old bottle, which we can bring back if we needed to rerun the fracture sim, which we won't. But I'm just going to take that old bottle collection, drag it to the very bottom, and the glass shards is under the main collection. We also now have these glass shards, which we can bring in and out of the scene. And this sort of organization is going to be a big help. So let's just hide the main collection and also the old bottle. We just have our shards here, our glass shards. And what we're going to do is we're going to tab into edit mode with all of them selected. We're going to press A to select everything. And what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to our pivot transforms, make it individual origins, and then go S and just slightly scale all these fragments down, just very slightly, so they're not intersecting. Okay. We're then going to go back in, make sure we're back to median point over here under the transforms. And we're going to just hold in shift and click on any one of these shards. Okay. We're going to go to our materials, go new material and call it glass. And while that piece is active and all the others are also selected, we're going to go Control L or Command L and link that material. Now they all have that glass material, we can go to our viewport display in the material and just give it a viewport color so we can see it's all been applied. Okay, we'll work on the materials later, but we now have our shards. And what we're going to do, we're going to parent all of these shards to an empty. So we're going to go Shift A. We're going to go to our empties. We're going to add in a cube. And we're going to go G, Z, move this empty up like that. And then we're going to select all of those shards and make sure you hold in shift, click on that empty. The empty should be the last thing that is selected. So we have all of these shards and then the empty. We're going to go Control P and then go Object, Keep Transform. Now everything is parented to this main active empty here, right? So we can animate all of these shards just by animating this one empty here, but we can take individual shards and animate them as well, regardless of them being parented to this empty here. So just make sure that that empty that's been added into the scene, click on it and drag it into the glass shards there. Okay, so if we hide the glass shards, the empty should hide too. So let's bring back our ship. Let's bring back our glass shards. We don't need the old bottle. You could delete it if you want. You can keep it there if you want to rerun the sim. But what we have here now is this glass bottle. And we have our boat. And let's do our animation now. Okay, so the first bit of animation is going to be the bottle itself. So we're going to select the empty that everything is parented to, all the shards. We're going to go over to our animation workspace. We're going to come up here to this little tab. We're going to change this to the graph editor. And what we're going to do is with this empty selected on frame 1, we're going to go I and we're going to insert a location or maybe just a rotation. Let's just insert a rotation keyframe. Okay, we're now going to come over here. Go to the object drop down here and we have all of these different vectors. Let's click on the X and then over here, let's press N on our keyboard. So the N key, we're going to go to modifiers, add modifier and give this a noise. We're going to make the scale 40 and we're going to make the strength 0.1. Okay, so what we're going to do now, what that's going to do is give us this random wobble when we play the animation. See that? So you got some random noise. We're now going to come here and on this X, we're going to copy it by clicking on this tab here, then click on the Y and paste it. And then offset this by making this one here 35 and the strength 0.11 and then hit the space bar and see what it looks like. See how we got that wobble now? Like that. And what you can do as well, you can change the phase on that Y a little bit. And you can see there we have that noise. So let's go to the Z and paste as well. Now we have that rotation here. Let's just offset the phase a little bit. And with the scale, I'm going to make it 60 on the Z. On the X, I'm going to make it 60 as well. So you can toy around with that just till it all makes sense. We just want some nice, slow wobble in space like that. Okay, that's looking really good. We're just using noise there. So let's go back to our layout. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to frame 1. Actually, so go to frame 1 and select that ship. And on frame 1 with that ship selected, we're going to hold in shift and select that empty. We're going to go control P and we're going to go object, keep transform. So now that ship is also parented to that. See that? Okay, so now we can do something quite fun. We can actually select a few shards here. So holding in shift, I'm just selecting a few shards here on the side where our ship is going to be, right? Like that. So just a few shards. You can picture this is going to be like an opening. And what we're going to do is we're going to come over to our timeline here. We're going to come up to frame 1. And on frame 1, we're going to go I. We're going to insert a location and rotation keyframe. And then we're going to go up to frame 90. And on frame 90, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our top orthographic view by pressing 7. And we're going to go G, move it out to about here. Then we're going to press 3 to go into our right orthographic view. And we're going to take each of these pieces and move them apart randomly like this. Now, I'm not working here with the auto keying because sometimes you can make a mistake too easy. So I'm just going to do this without using the auto keying. So we just want to kind of open up this space a little bit like that. And with all of these pieces now moved on frame 90, let's go I and give them a location and a rotation. So now we have this. Okay, now we'll offset these a little bit later on so they're not all going at the same rate. But back on frame 90, let's also just select individual shards and randomly rotate them by pressing R twice. And at this point, I'm going to select them all again, go I and insert a location and rotation. So just so they kind of all fold out like that. Okay, we're going to offset them later on, but you get the idea. We're now going to select our boat and we're going to come to frame 40. And on frame 40, we're going to go I and insert a location and rotation keyframe. We're then going to come to frame 80, and on frame 80 we're going to go to our top orthographic view. We're going to go G and move it out and then R to rotate it forward like that, G to move it up a little bit just like there, and we're going to go I and insert a location and rotation. So this is what we're going to see that the boat kind of comes out, and then we're going to go up to 150 and we're going to go G and move that boat out even more and rotate it slightly up, and we're going to go I and insert a location and rotation. So what we should see when we play our animation is something like this. See that? Pretty cool. And what we can do is we can quickly go back to our animation workspace. With this boat selected, we can quickly come over here to the vectors. We can select the Y over here, and let's paste that modifier that we still have in our clipboard from earlier. And let's just make the noise something like 12 and leave the strength as it is. Okay, so now the boat is kind of bobbing a little bit. If that isn't looking quite right, you can always change the scale to 22, make the scale a little bit wider, a little bit bigger. Cool, and we can come here and maybe paste that on the Z as well and make it, let's just leave it as it is, but change the phase of it. Okay, that bit is optional, but just having a little bit of bobbing, that little bit of noise is just going to make it look like it's not too stationary. In fact, let's just select these shards. Well, we probably don't have to give them that. Let's just go back to our layout for now. Okay, we have our boat animated. We have the glass pieces coming out. What you're going to do now to randomize things is you're going to select these glass shards. You're going to come to frame 90 where they start, and with each individual shard, you're just going to take that keyframe and you're going to drag it forward or back a little bit in the timeline, right? So like that, just so there's a little bit of offset. Okay, so you can see where I'm coming with this. So some of these are going to kind of like, I'm just clicking in each one of these shards, moving their keyframe at a little bit of a random point, a little bit forward or a little bit back. Make sure not to accidentally do it with the boat, but you get where I'm coming at here with this. So if you now go, you can see they don't all start at exactly the same point. Anywhere where there is an interaction, you want to select that piece. At this point, you could turn on auto keying, and then that'll automatically add in the keyframes. Just make sure that you turn that off as you're done. Any intersections, you just go through the timeline. You can select the pieces, move them out of the way, even rotate them slightly. Whatever you feel works for what you're doing. So yeah, to take your time with this, just give them random rotations. I still have the auto keying. I'm just selecting individual shards and giving them slight rotation at random points with the keyframing, just so they all look quite a bit different. Okay, so now I'm going to turn off the auto keying, see what that looks like. Okay, that is looking pretty cool. Okay, so there we have our animation. You can see the boat is bobbing here. That's cool. So now in our right orthographic view, let's go make sure auto keying is disabled. We're going to go Shift A. We're going to add in a camera. We're going to change the camera to a focal length of 120. And we're going to go G, Y, G, X, and move it back. Go into our camera view and move our camera up. I'm not going to go into all of the things I'm pressing to move the camera on camera view. That is pretty basic information. I'm sure you guys know that by now. And I'm going to go change this transform to 3D cursor, and with the camera selected, I'm just going to rotate it like that. G to move it, and I'm just going to get a nice pose like that. That is looking pretty cool. I'm going to turn this back to median point, and I'm just going to go Control B, and I'm going to click and drag over the camera to limit the rendering to the camera. I'm going to go and change the render engine to cycles. If you have a GPU, make sure to enable it. If not, don't worry. Go to your render settings and make the max samples 120 and make sure that the noising is enabled. Then save, make sure to save. What we have now is our animation. What we're going to do next is a bit of lighting, and we're going to work also on our materials. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with our lighting so we can see things. Let's go to our world settings and let's go over to our color. Click on this little tab and make it a sky texture. So this is actually built into Blender. And if you now press Z and you go rendered, you're going to see we have this lighting, and it's quite bright, quite blown out. So what we're going to do is we're going to go Shift A, search, get a plane. We're going to go RX90, hit enter. And we're just going to move this plane to the back here. So you can see where the camera is. So just roughly rotate it, S to scale it up nice and big. All you want to do is just put that somewhere far in the background here, like that. Okay, and we're going to just move it, scale it, just like that. That's it. Okay, just as long as it's in the background. Now, if you press Z and go rendered, you can see there we have it. Now, what I would technically do if I was going to render this out is go to my render settings, go to the film, and then make it transparent, and then render these out as PNG sequences. You can then go into something like Adobe, drag in your sequences, and you can put in a background, right? That's what I would recommend, a professional method, but this would get really long, would get into other software. So for now, I'm just adding in a plane in the background there. I'm going to go to my materials tab with that plane active. I'm going to click new, I'm going to make it nice and black. And I'm going to go to the roughness and just bring it down and press Z, go rendered. And now we see that. Now what you can do is go to your world settings, go to your strength and make it 0.4. and maybe even 0.3 or 0.2. Just bring it down, and you can rotate that sun rotation. This is under the world environment parameters here, just rotating that sun till it kind of looks nice and nice shadows. Okay, I'm liking the look of that. What we're going to do now is make sure to save as we go. And let's go Shift A, just quickly add in an area light, G, Z, move it up, S to scale it, and then S, Y to scale into Y. Go to your light settings and give it whatever strength you feel works for your scene. Okay, this is completely up to you. I'm not going to get too into the lighting here. Just Shift D if you need to duplicate a light, rotate it, place it wherever you think it works for your scene. So now that you have some lighting to work with, we already made this cycles earlier on. We already gave all of these glass bits a material. Let's go to our shading workspace and make sure you go Z, go rendered over here. And with this glass material, let's go to our transmission on the principle, drag it all the way up to 1, and then take this roughness down a bit. In fact, we're going to plug something into this roughness. So let's go Shift A, search, and get a noise texture. I'm going to take this noise texture, we're going to go Shift A, search, and get a color ramp. We're going to take the factor, plug it into here, and then take the color ramp and plug it into the roughness. Then we're going to go Shift A, search, and get a texture coordinate. And we're going to plug the generated into the vector over here. We can now take these values and drag them around to randomize the roughness. We can mess around with the scale here. We can add detail to the noise. Just try out some different things, okay? I'm going to go Control and B just to limit the render to a smaller space here. But what you can do is come to the color and give this a bit of a color. I made it kind of like a bit of a darker glass with a little bit of green. And that just adds some realism to things. Okay, so you can see here, there we have our bottle material. And now what we can do is just work on our ship. I'm going to select the ship, and we already added this material earlier on. The texture. We already added the texture for the color early on, but let's just go to our materials tab. Let's make sure we're working with the boat here, and we're going to go Shift D and duplicate this image texture, bring it down. We're going to click on the folder, and let's get the height. Let's get the height here and go Open Image. And let's go Shift A, search, and get a bump node. Plug the color into the height, and then plug that normal into the principled. We're going to make this a non-color data. Color space here, and you could add in the normal and all of that. I'm not going to bother with that. Now just duplicate one of these image textures, click on the file, and go and get the roughness for the boat. Okay, get the roughness, and then plug that color into the roughness and make this non-color data. Okay, I'm not really liking the way that looks, so I might just change this then to a normal, and I'm going to go Shift A, search, and get a normal map. Then plug this color into the color here, take this normal and put it into the normal of the bump, and then plug that out of the roughness. Okay, so now we have a normal as well. I'm just going to take the strength on the bump and put it to 0.2 or whatever looks right, just dragging it around. And then I'm going to take this roughness and drag it down a bit just to give the ship a bit more gloss. Okay, so I've just got a very basic node set up here for all of this. Make sure this color space here is set in on color data on the normal input. So you can see here we have a basic material for the ship. I'm not going to do anything to the sail except select it and give it a little bit of transmission, just to make it kind of a little bit see-through almost. But really trying to keep this simple on the ship. So we now have our glass. We have our ship. I might just grab the camera and zoom in just a little bit more like that. Cool. What we're going to do now is go back to our layout. We're going to go Shift A. We're going to get a empty, okay, a cube empty. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to frame 1 and we're going to move it up in here, shrink it down a bit. And with it active, we're going to hold in Shift and select that ship, okay? So select the empty we just added in, select the ship, Control P and go Object, keep Transform. And now that empty is going to follow that ship. We can now select our camera, go to our camera settings, give it a depth of field, click here and then get that empty we just added in. That should be the last empty added. If you type in EMPT, you should see empty.001 because there's only 2 empties in the scene. So now we can take this f-stop and bring it down to 0.3 or something really low. So if we now go into a camera view, when you press Z and you go rendered, you should see that the focal point is on the ship and the bottle is out of focus. Okay, and that looks pretty cool. You can now go to your world settings here and the lighting, and you can just mess around with the sun rotation a little bit more. Now that you have the materials, just till it looks good. That's all I can really say. Work with it till it looks good to you and it makes sense. Okay, it's your project. Cool. So now we can just drag for any shot here, and that focus point will always be on that ship there. That's looking pretty good. So yeah, at this point, what you could do is go to your output, select this folder here, click on it, and choose somewhere like your desktop. You could render out PNG sequences and put them together in post. I would recommend that. If you want to render it out as one video, which is a bit risky when you've got such a thing that's going to take a bit to render, you could always go FFmpeg video, which I wouldn't recommend. You can go to encoding, and then you can make the container an MP4 and just render this out in one shot. The risk of that, if it crashes, you can lose all of that. So I would definitely, with something like this, I would personally go with PNG sequences, render them out to a file somewhere in your desktop, and then compile them in After Effects. I'm not going to be doing that in this tutorial, otherwise it's going to get a bit too long. But nevertheless, this is, as promised, a boat animation. As you can see here, this is what I showed you in the beginning. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I will put a link to all the resources below, and I am putting all of this on my Patreon as well. And yeah, thank you for watching, and thank you for your support.